welcome to the Meditation Conversation, the podcast to support your spiritual revolution. I'm your host, Kara Goodwin, and today I'm joined by Philipp Samor von Holtzendorff-Fehling. Philipp is a pioneer in quantum technology and frequency medicine. He's the founder and CEO of Quantum Upgrade, a groundbreaking pure quantum energy streaming service designed to help users boost their energy levels, health, and well-being, and neutralize harmful EMF frequencies in their space. He's also the founder and CEO of Lila Quantum Tech, which offers quantum energy devices designed to accelerate your body's recovery and optimize health. So welcome, Philipp. So great to have you here today.
Thanks so much for having me on.
I'm really excited to talk about the opportunities that are available with the quantum technology. But maybe if we go a little bit further back in your story, because I understand that prior to founding Lila Quantum Technology, you worked as an executive and board member for several Fortune 500 companies, including T-Mobile. And you're also a Kundalini yoga teacher and a passionate tennis player, having made it to the top 8 in the U.S. Tennis Nationals several years ago. So that's a very diverse, broad range of expertise. And I would just love to hear a little bit about what your journey has been like, particularly from corporate executive into quantum technology, because those aren't necessarily hugely compatible always. So has it been kind of seamless, or has there been some friction with some of those things?
Well, so the friction started at some point a little later in my career because I would say in the early 2000s, I was already in the career. I was in corporate Europe later than in corporate America, but in the early 2000s, it's when I realized I was in an unhappy state in my life. And I realized what I'm unhappy. I'm cut off my own emotions and feelings. I cut off and discredited my own intuition. And with that, I would discredit it in others as well, just because I was so brain focused, so rational, but I was unhappy. And I realized I actually really need to find myself. I had this calling, like, yeah, you need to find yourself again, like whatever that means, right? What did that mean to me at the time? I actually didn't know. So I started to get into yoga, into meditation. And then I got curious because I started to open up more and more. And, how this, once you're on the journey and you're opening up to certain energies and directions, you're going to encounter more of that, right? And then I wanted to learn and to find the best healers that you can find on earth and learn from them. I went through shamanic workshops, through learning various energy healing techniques, got trained in past life regression work, and on and on and on. And on the journey, I really found some of those absolutely top healers, where a broken arm could be healed in just a few days, or just ridiculous things that would happen. And I realized that with me also, that in all these courses, I open up more and more. I went deeper and deeper into myself. And in 2005, I met my wife, who was born with the ability to see aura and energy fields. She never had lost the conscious connection to the divine that I had lost, and that I would say over 99.5% of the people have lost at some point, and at least in the early
Mhm.
childhood, at some point we lose that. And then we get on the journey or not to find that again, right? And so that was my path, and it was really happening in parallel to the corporate career, and it was always the right thing to do to keep staying in corporate, right? I always asked and checked in also energetically, is it the right time to go? And no, it wasn't. And in 2016, it was the right time to go because there the stretch had become too big. Because I really, I had found myself, and but I had to be myself all the time, and I couldn't just play a corporate role, but at the same time, I couldn't just bring in everything that I was into the corporate world because it's just not really, it's not accepted, or it wasn't accepted at the time, really. And it's also not what I wanted to do, to be honest, because I knew in my heart I had things to do here on earth and certain things that I could help others with. And that was really where the quantum technology came in and all of that. And so until 2016, that's where there was a lot of friction. And I was like, okay, now it's time to move on.
Mhm. Thank you for taking us through your journey, and I relate to it a lot because I come from a corporate background as well, working in, blue chip companies, not as an executive, but still, I appreciate what the culture is like and, that it can be kind of disharmonious, and yet it can very well be that we are waking up, but like you say, it's not necessarily time to just abandon our mainstream life as well. Because, for one thing, if we're talking about the quantum, so much happens in the quantum that for a lot of people, everything that's happening in the quantum is beyond their conscious awareness because it's not the same as this physical world. The physical world is part of it, but then doesn't use Newtonian physics and it's a different reality experience. But the corporate world benefits, it's made up of people. It's made up of other humans. And so when there are humans who are in those organizations who are waking up to these other aspects of them, even if they're not showing it, their energy doesn't lie, and we all are picking up on cues and clues within our energy that we're, again, not consciously aware of. I love that whole sentiment about using that intuition, like, is it time yet? Am I still where I'm supposed to be? Am I doing what I'm here to do? And just being patient before making any kind of life altering decisions, and understanding that it could be your dharma, your purpose, to be there amongst the people who maybe aren't reflecting back to you that new part of the journey and the awakening that you're on, but you're playing a role, having faith that we're playing a role in that. So it's fascinating. So how did quantum energy come into focus for you and eventually leading to quantum technology?
So one of the things that also happened during this time of conversion, right, where, my career, I was doing that and I was getting trained in all these healing techniques. My wife had been diagnosed with chronic Lyme disease. And she had it since 5 years when she got diagnosed. And then the doctors told us, well, you can't heal it. You have to live with this. You can try to be better and all of that, but you just face that. And we did not accept that. Obviously, she had her own abilities, but it's always something, if you have something as a healer, it's something you need to learn. For me, it was an opportunity in a way. As bad as it was, I think for her it was a great teacher. And by the way, she's healed it completely. So she has nothing left of the Lyme disease since a few years. And for me, it was a spark to actually get really into biohacking and bioenergy hacking to find out what really is there that can help heal us. That's not like the mainstream stuff that actually doesn't really work, right? And I think that was really the spark that laid the foundation to it. And then at some point, I encountered a couple of companies that worked with quantum energy, but they didn't do a good job at all. They only worked with a tiny little bit of quantum energy, and the rest was magnetism and electricity that actually destabilized the field, and it was stressful to the human body. And I said, well, we can do that so much better. And then this vision came up really because if a healer works with someone, they work with a quantum field and then they work with information, right? So with frequency. And then they combine these things and try to bring systems that are out of balance into balance. That's basically how it works. And a system could be anything, right? It could be the arm that I mentioned, but it could be the whole body. It could be the emotional system, whatever you're looking at, right? It's always all built on small systems that get into larger systems and so on. And yeah, then we started to develop that and developed it with some of these super gifted healers. Like some of them are in Europe, some in the US, and we basically developed the technology that can concentrate and make available a super concentrated, pure quantum energy field, which I need to probably explain real quick what even quantum energy is and what we mean by that, because there's a lot of quantum stuff out there, and there's also a lot of
Mhm.
quantum stuff that is BS, to be honest. A lot of stuff that claims to be something cool but isn't. And we'll get into that why we're completely different and it's all science backed actually what we're talking about here. The quantum energy is the energy behind the matter. So we know that we're mainly water in our physical body, right? That's already a stretch for our brain, right? How can we
Mhm.
be over 90% water? But it really is the case. And then behind that, in essence, we're over 99% space, right? And then some say, well, that's empty space. But that empty space isn't really empty because it's filled with energy. And each cell contains a quantum energy field, and that's how the cells communicate instantly and constantly. That's the energy we're talking about. So the energy we're using is nothing artificial. It's the very same energy. It couldn't be more natural, frankly. It's just the breakthrough is that we were able to make it available because it is everywhere. Quantum energy is everywhere, but just in very low concentrations. And it actually gets sucked out of objects and people by things like EMF and other stressors. Now, if you then get in contact with our technology or with the field that we can provide, it's almost like as if you're recharging your battery on an energetic level. And it's in essence a high consciousness field that we can provide. Now, your listeners know about consciousness quite a bit to more or lesser extent, probably, depend on if you're new to your show or have watched it quite a bit. But that's in essence what it is. And then you may be familiar with the so called Hawkins scale. Dr. David Hawkins that set up the consciousness scale from 0 to 1,000. And our technology can calibrates higher on the Hawkins scale than any other products on the in the world by far. And
I We have not explored that scale on this podcast, so if you wanna share a little bit about that, that'd be great.
absolutely. So look up Power versus Force by Dr. David Hawkins. Everyone, if you're interested, you can read the book, even better, the audiobook. Get through the first 50 minutes because 15 minutes they're boring. And then afterwards, you can't stop listening to it anymore. It's amazing. In a nutshell, he set a consciousness scale from 0 to 1,000, where the lower levels of consciousness, like anger, guilt, shame, and so on, they're in the low settings of this consciousness scale. Then you move into the 500, where there's unconditional love on the level 500 per Hawkins. Then you move into joy. The state of joy is at 540, and so on. And then you move into the enlightenment zone. That's how he called it. And yeah, so that's pretty profound. And you can measure and calibrate the consciousness state of a being. So if any human,
Wow.
you can literally calibrate the consciousness, the level of consciousness. You can do that with locations too. So for some people that may be interesting, but yeah, in a nutshell, so you could calibrate your own state of consciousness, which may vary. And some, you may actually be in anger. That doesn't mean that
Mm.
you're as a being that you're vibrating just on the anger level, right? So it's always an average basically that you're vibrating in and you can calibrate that. But you can also increase your consciousness. And how do you increase your consciousness? Obviously, you can do meditation, you can do consciousness work, you can do
Breath
yoga, you
work
can do breath
helps. Yeah.
work, you can do all these things, and you can just connect more and more with yourself. And what else could you do? If you have a dinner with an enlightened being, for example, with one enlightened master, then after that dinner, or the more and more you sit with that master, you're getting more and more into this higher vibration, right? So if maybe
Mm.
picture that now, or you have experienced that before. Now, if you use our technology, that's is very, very similar to that because it's having such a high level of vibration that it just invites you to get into this state as well. And that's in essence how it works. It's a high consciousness field. It's not a master per se, but it's still pure natural quantum energy. And that's in a nutshell how it works. And we have these devices. We wanted to talk more today about the actual quantum upgrade that works over distance, which is super hard for the brain to understand. Like, I get that. It's total woo, right? To think, how can I set on my app that I want a quantum energy at the level of 900 on the Hawkins scale, for example, for me all day today, and then for the night, I want it at 600, for example. But you can do that, and you can measure that, and we have proven that over and over again, actually in randomized, sham-controlled, double-blind studies in with various labs, university labs, and institutes. It is a real breakthrough, and it's fascinating. You can neutralize EMFs with it. We'll get into that, but I'll let you
I was
ask.
just gonna say, yeah, I was just gonna say because it's fascinating. This is a streaming service. I understand you have devices and you have a streaming service, but if you talk about accessing this through your phone, so I have two children, and I've been lately thinking like, should I like ask them not to have their phones in their rooms while they're sleeping, and just like trying to think about like the sleep environment just being it could be more restorative maybe if I took their phones out. But so I'm fascinated that you're specifically one of the things you focus on is EMF and also the T-Mobile connection. I'm interested in the EMF and your communications background. This is delivered on the phone, which emits EMF. So what can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so you can set it on your phone and you can set it on your laptop, of course, because it's a web application that you as a user, you have that, and then you can set different levels, different strength levels. Basically, you can define it for the day, for the night. You can set boosters where it's specifically strong, like during a practice or a sport competition or something like that. And you can book in a specific frequency, for example, an inner peace frequency or a focus frequency or all kinds of different frequencies that we created as well, which we call frequency medicine. And but that's just the front end. That's what you as the user can use to actually set it. And you can decide, do you want to have the quantum upgrade indeed just for your phone? And then indeed it would be this phone would be in the field and it would be the field. So it would
Mhm.
emit whatever you want it to emit because you can set it, and it's very easy to set it. Like every 12-year-old can set it. It's super, super simple. It's nothing sophisticated. You don't need any
Well,
training.
in some ways, the 12-year-olds are more technologically advanced than some of us grown-ups, those digital natives.
Yeah. I should have maybe said 9-year-old then. Yeah, yeah.
Right.
But so that would be one way you could use the phone. You could also use it for yourself indeed. And then you would be in the field. If it's turned on, you are in the field. And no matter if you fly to Australia and back, you go to a grocery store and back, all that, you're always in the field until you
And you
pause
don't
it.
have to have your phone near you.
No, you don't need anything because your energy signature is in the field. And so you're in the field at all times until you pause it or until you say, no, I don't want anymore or whatever. You can have it for your phone, you can have it for your business, you can have it for your pet. Those are for your car. So those are the different options you can set. But then we have a highly advanced analog system that we built that's not publicly available, but it works similar to the block technology that Lila Quantum Tech offers. It's just way more advanced and way more powerful. So it's probably the most powerful source of quantum energy on Earth. At least that's being made publicly available that we've created. And the trick was really, first of all, to build all but that was a development that happened several years prior. Then the question was, okay, how can we connect an analog system where you can have access to such powerful quantum energy with the digital front end? And so we basically created a bridge, and that literally just came out of, yeah, I don't know, like it wasn't the brain, just some thinking, how can we do it? It would literally we work with consciousness access actually to even figure out how to connect that. And it's working perfectly. And again, we have shown in studies where even the professors that ran the studies that are mainstream professors that said something like this can't work. And they were all proven wrong in their own studies. And now they're the greatest believers because they know it works. And I'm happy to get into that because I know it sounds crazy. Like, how can this work? It does work, and it works actually. Also, so if you have a child and the child is in school, you're sitting at home, and the child has an accident there, like a really bad accident, you feel it. if you're tuned in, you feel it, right? And but there's nothing like but how can you feel it, right? So it's pretty much the same way that it works. Things like that energy doesn't have to travel over distance, and there's also no time that it needs to go through. With our technology, it's the same thing because we work with a pure natural quantum energy field. There is no time and distance that matters. Not at all. I mean, literally not.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I'm curious, and I want to go into some of the studies or some case studies that you can share with us about some effects that people have had. But in terms of like the technology itself, is there something in the back end that's generating this? Is there something like in a place in Florida somewhere where it's like, this is the generator for this quantum field that's then like quantumly distributed to the devices, or how does that work?
Yeah, so indeed, in three different continents, we have systems running all in parallel, and that's just a precaution. We don't need to do that. One would be enough. We may have it in four continents at some point, but we want to have always multiple systems running at the same time in case ever anything happens with one location, for example, just out of precaution. So it always works for the people and the businesses that are signed up. And it's those are these big analog systems that I described that contain a super concentrated quantum energy field and also the specific frequencies that we have created and make available. So one way to access that would be clear that you physically go to one of these locations and you put your hands in there, for example, or you're just near it. That would be one way. But another way is because of the quantum entanglement that's literally possible, we can use a unique identifier, which would be it could be a picture of you, for example. We don't work with pictures, but that would be one way to do it. The way we do it right now is with birth date, with your name and the city you were born in, and then the country you live in. So if we have that information that ties that back directly to you, the source, and we can place that into this system, which is just a pure natural, super highly concentrated, high consciousness field in essence with, these bells and whistles. And then you are in the field. So the big trick really was to make that in a way where we have it connected that you can do that. Like you literally sign that it happens in an automated fashion, that you can even make changes. That was tough to develop, but that's in essence how it works.
Wow. Well, tell us about some of the studies, the case studies, and some examples of how this has helped people.
Yeah, so I start with the latest two studies that were done by a professor at the University of Tulsa, and he's an expert in his field. Since 3 decades, he's been one of the most advanced professors in researching wound healing, ATP production, and all that of human cells, and knows pretty much everything around that. And his lab is very sophisticated, so he can literally expose human cells to something and then tell, okay, what's the difference? Does it work less now or better or something like that? And it's completely real, with all his equipment and everything. And so there we did an ATP production study that was done actually 3 times because the first time the result was so positive and he said, "I can't come up with these results. He said, I have to do it again, even though this is crazy." So it was a huge study, by the way, with millions of cells, and you had a control group that didn't get charged, and then you had a group that got charged, and it was double blind. So he did not even know which got charged. Some other person in there in the lab with him knew it, but wasn't conducting the experiment. So it was completely double blind. In
And what is ATP?
Yeah, okay, explanation. I'm glad you asked. So that's the energy production of the human cells, which literally can be measured, like physically, it can be measured,
Mm.
and you need it to live. If so,
Is it like the electrical charge of it? The voltage?
it has to do with that. It's literally the energy production in the mitochondria.
Okay.
And so if you don't have that, you're dead. Literally, like after a
Okay.
few seconds, you're dead. You can live without water for way longer than without ATP production. And you would need it for obviously, especially good ATP production if you have mental exercise, if you play chess, if you do sports and things like that, you need even more ATP. All the energy you need, basically, that's what your cells need to create. And so we knew that our technology and our quantum upgrade increased already the energy level in general, but did it also increase the actual energy production that the cells contribute? That was the big question, okay? And it was shown that it increased ATP production by 20 to 29%, which is massive. It is absolutely massive. Anyone who knows anything about this will tell you this is remarkable, absolutely remarkable. Dave Asprey, the father of biohacking, who wrote a whole book about ATP production. He said you can maybe do these 10, 11 things, like with NAD shots, with your Q10 supplements and whatever, all this together, and then you can maybe get it to 20 to 25%. But you have to do all these invasive things all together at the same time, which no one really does because it's too much. And now, at the press of a button, you can lift the ATP production by 20 to 29%. This is massive, completely non invasive. So that's one. And it was repeated 3 times because the professor said, who is mainstream, right? If I come out with it, it better be, I mean, I need to just double
It's gotta
check
be
my
locked
butt.
in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Right.
And then so the same professor ran a wound healing study also with actual human cells and was able to show 85 to 100% acceleration in wound healing of human cells with our technology. Again, in a double blind study that was randomized with a control group and everything. So really a gold standard study. And then the last thing I want to mention, and there were other great studies out there, but the last one is really looking at the blood. So we had the Base Institute in Austria conduct, I think by now, 4 randomized double-blind studies in regards to dark field microscopy or live blood analysis. So with that, you see the actual blood cells, the red blood cells, the white blood cells in a magnified and illuminated fashion. And you can see blood clots and things like that, right? All of that you can see. And they were able to show a significant improvement in 100% of the cases in the charged
Wow.
people. And it was across the board, and it was not, it was within minutes, within 10 to 15 minutes. Stage 1 and stage 2 of blood clotting reversed completely. White blood cell activity, motility increased. You had a reduction in parasitic load in the blood. It was remarkable.
It's
Yep.
amazing.
Yep. It's just energy.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it's consciousness, but yep.
And so we've been talking about the streaming service,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
There are also, so the Leela is, these are like physical devices, is that correct?
That's correct, and the so-called block technology that we developed can do the same things. So if you have a physical block, for example, and you're just near it, it already has positive effects on your blood. It neutralizes EMF in your whole house. It has a positive effect on wound healing, on energy production, all of these things. But that you
And
could
what's the dist that field projects?
it depends on the actual block. We have a small block and we have a large block, and the larger ones have a radius of at least a kilometer. That is,
Wow.
yeah, that's like zero point 0.6 miles or something like that. The EMF harmonization happens in about half of that. So that's still big. That is zero point 0.3 miles.
Wow.
Your house is easily covered by that. And then you can charge with the devices also. You can charge your water. You can structure water. The Emoto Institute out of Japan, like they're
Mhm.
reselling our products now because after they tested them, they were so convinced how great they were. Yeah, that's quite remarkable. But the quantum upgrade is over distance, so you don't even need a physical device. You couldn't charge your water with it because we don't have that functionality, but it's for yourself, literally. Yeah, it works.
And the device that you talked about, the block device, that not only would charge water, but it affects the human body as well. Like just
Correct.
anything
Yeah.
in its field, it's
Correct.
gonna bring it into balance. And
Correct. And it works on the below subatomic level, and it ripples through basically into the physical. And because it's such a high consciousness field, the nature of it, and there's nothing we did actually to it, it's just the nature of the field. It supports anything regarding life and consciousness. And it neutralizes and harmonizes everything that's destructive or harmful to life and consciousness. And that's just the nature of the field. That's what it does. It couldn't do anything else, frankly. And the breakthrough really was for us that we were able to concentrate that field. And that's also why the technology couldn't be manipulated by anyone, because even our quantum upgrade system, if someone were to, you can't even hack into it because it's analog. If someone were to go physically into that room where it is, for example, and would place, I don't know, the frequency of a herbicide and a fungicide in there, for example, and then they may think they could distribute it now to everyone, but they couldn't. It wouldn't be possible because it's everything that's destructive for life and consciousness gets neutralized. So it's the signal is
Mm.
basically neutralized.
Wow.
Yeah.
I really appreciate and love the stories about the studies that you've been doing. Do you have like some examples of people who've used it and things that, results that they've had, overcoming their challenges, their health challenges or so forth?
Yeah, literally thousands. We have thousands of testimonials and we have thousands of real people that everyone could actually talk to because we have 2 Telegram groups. I'm happy to share the links with you if you want. One is called the Quantum Power Group with over 6,500 active members on Telegram. And by the way, it's a private group, so you can't even find it on Telegram because our goal is not to have a large group. Our goal is to have a group with just the actual people that use the products that also happen to want to be on in this group and share and learn, right? And you can
Mhm.
ask these people, just ask any question. Hey, what have you found out? What's your favorite product? What did you I almost said heal with it, but we shouldn't use that word. What did you encounter? What did you discover? All of that. And there's way more than I just told you in the last few minutes. And then there's a group just for the quantum upgrade, just because it just all works a little bit different. It has by now, I think, almost 3,000 members. And yeah, so you can talk to real people, and there's lots of testimonials on there. And then some of them we put on our websites as well. So you can read
Mhm.
through that.
Oh, wonderful. I would love to go back just to EMF as a topic, because it's amazing what your technologies can do. But if there's anybody listening who doesn't really even understand what we're talking about with the EMF, can you just lay some foundation about what it is and the potential harm that we may be not even realizing we're encountering?
Yeah, so there are native EMFs that come from the sun, for example, and then there's so-called non-native EMFs, and those come typically from microwaves, TVs, batteries, electric cars, or
And this is electromagnetic frequency
or electromagnetic fields. That's the
fields.
EMF,
Okay.
electromagnetic fields, so electromagnetic
Okay.
radiation, you could say, microwaves, 3G, 4G, 5G, Wi-Fi, all of those basically. And so we're being blasted all the time by these. And already with 3G, it was clear that it's detrimental to the human body. And all the studies, by the way, are clear and have been clear since day one about that. You find some industry funded studies that all say, well, there's no issue with EMF. And then you find thousands of peer reviewed studies that are independent and they all say the same thing, that it's actually harmful to the human body, which is absolutely the case, and I could prove it anywhere with any study also that we conducted. You find in 100% of the cases you see that issue, even though with our own consciousness, there's ways to mitigate it. But most people have no clue how to do that, right? So that's why they need tools. So that's right. So it's your in the short term already, your blood is impacted, your heart rate variability, so your autonomic nervous system is impacted. It adds stress, right, to the body. In the long run, obviously, you have an increase in autoimmune diseases, cancer rates, etc., can all be linked to rollout of such technologies. And with that, by the way, having also come from the other side, really, I don't want to say this is all bad because there's a huge convenience factor. And there's even that we can get to talk right now like this and all that. So it's very beneficial for the exchange of information. And it's also unrealistic to think, okay, because this also causes damage, that we're going to tear down all these towers. First of all, the special interests are way too big and in advance to ever let that happen. So it's just unrealistic. So we need to find solutions how we can deal with the situation as it is, and we have found the solution. We literally have the solution because you don't need to shield yourself or live off grid. That's also a nice thing to do. But hey, you can still live your life and just use this tech, for example, right? And you don't have any issues. And also, I want to say that you can use our tech or you don't. If you don't, then you better train your consciousness with or without our tech. Our tech actually does that. It does not make you dependent. It actually helps lift you up because you come into a higher vibration. Whether you do that with our tech, that's the autobahn to get there, frankly, and keep doing your yoga, keep doing your meditation. I'm not saying you shouldn't do that anymore. You should. But if you don't use our tech, then you need to do way more of meditation and yoga and all that to increase your vibration, because that is your only way to actually combat these frequency soups that you're running through all the time. And those frequencies out there are not beneficial. So you need to be in a very high vibration in order to repel those or transform those. That's basically the whole idea about it.
Okay, thank you. And we will wrap up here in a second, but I have so many questions. Can you talk about what, like, about how long? So if somebody signs up for the streaming service, about when will they notice a difference? How long does it take for that to kind of integrate into the field? Is it immediate? What can you say about that?
So the actual energy transfer happens already within 5 minutes, because it's near real time. So every 5 minutes, our system is updated. So if there's a new sign up or you change the power you want to receive, for example, it takes up to 5 minutes until that is implemented, if you will. And then you could feel it right away. And I'm sure you would feel it pretty much right away. Probably a lot of others of your listeners would feel it right away, and some don't. And the ones that don't usually are the ones that aren't as tuned in yet, which isn't a bad thing, and this shouldn't come across as judgmental. It's just the way it is. Most people nowadays are very much in their head, and we have unlearned how to even feel ourselves. Like, we ask people on the street, like, how are you doing? Yeah, great. But we don't even think about it. And if we really thought about it, do we even know how we feel? Like, we've lost this ability. But the people that have reclaimed that, they can feel this relatively quickly. And if you are one of the ones that can't, then take your time, because we have a 7-day free trial where you don't pay anything, and you just go through it. And then maybe on the second or third day, start using the boosters. Those are for half an hour at first. And that's a much stronger energy level. And then if you give yourself some time during the booster to actually feel, maybe you're walking in nature with your dog, and I don't know, or you're in meditation or doing yoga, something where you can still maintain your awareness, then you will start feeling these things. And if you then still can't, then set it on very high at night, and you'll notice that you won't be able to sleep.
I was just wondering, like, could you sleep if you had it really high?
Yeah, so you can definitely sleep, but we recommend really the level of 500 or at most 600. I do 500 always. It doesn't mean it's low. It's a level of unconditional love, right? But it's at nights we don't need energy stimulation really.
Yeah.
And but during the day we really want to, right? And we, I don't know, want
Mhm.
to do more things and all that. So yeah. So for the night, but you could, because so yeah, we had some people that tried that, and yeah, then you have more trouble sleeping.
Yeah. Yeah. This is really fascinating. Can you talk about how people can find out more?
Yeah, so on quantumupgrade.io. So again, quantumupgrade.io, you can just take a look and actually also find our Telegram group there, at least the one for Quantum Upgrade. You'll find the Telegram icon, and then you can just check in, ask some questions, and you can sign up for the free trial if you want. And for Lila Quantum Tech, it would be lelaq.com, leelaq.com, and same thing there, so that I don't have to send you the Telegram link. So you could just go through the website and click on Telegram there, and um, Yeah, that's where you find me also. So if you ever want to reach out to me personally, feel free to.
Wonderful. Wow, thank you so much, Philip. This has been really informative and exciting, and such a pleasure to meet you. Thank you.
Same here. Thanks so much for having me on.